Before we get into into today's presentation, I want to talk a little bit about our community and our webcast series. First off, welcome to our webcast series, especially if this is your first time attending. This is something we try to do twice a month, and we've been doing it since April. And so we've got quite a few webcasts under our belts to this point. We try to do them on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. So if you kind of want to mark those spots on your calendar and be looking for information and links for upcoming webcasts, that's typically what we shoot for. The goals of these webcasts are to really, going down to the bottom bullet point, just bring you closer to the folks who make the software, and you being the users. And today's webcast, I think, is a classic example of that. Nick's going to be talking about a preview feature, so it's something that we're working on and developing, and you're going to get a chance to look at it through his eyes and with his perspective, and even get a chance to maybe ask some questions about what's in the mind of Autodesk as we're developing these solutions. I do have an important announcement. Speaking of the webcast schedule, we will not be having a webcast on our normally scheduled frequency, which would be December 2nd, because that's right smack in the middle of Autodesk University. And many of the folks who would be presenters, including myself, as well as many of the folks who would attend such a webcast, will probably be busy in Las Vegas during that time. So we're going to pass on having a webcast at that time. However, we will be having a webcast on the following spot on the calendar, which would be Wednesday, December 16th. And if anyone here attended Dave Tyner's webcast on animating InfraWorks 360 model components, we're having a part 2 of that, and he's going to move on to something a little more advanced than what he did the first time. That webcast was our most attended as of yet, so we broke an attendance record with that one. So if you missed it, go back and review the recording and make sure you sign up for part 2, which will be coming up. The links and the information on that webcast have not been released yet, but when they are, you'll find them at one of the locations listed at the bottom of your screen: the community site, the forum, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages that are all associated with InfraWorks 360. I'm going to do a quick poll, and what we're trying to do here is get an idea of where everyone is with their InfraWorks 360 usage level. So I'll launch that poll, and if you wouldn't mind choosing your answer, ranging from I don't have it installed down to I use it on almost every project, couldn't live without it. So let us know what your usage level is of InfraWorks 360. And we've been doing this poll for every webcast, and we've been gathering a pretty good set of data on how this usage level has progressed over time. And we're definitely seeing a shift down into the lower level with and we're seeing that follow suit again today with the highest number of votes coming in on the 4th choice. I regularly use it on some projects. So I'm going to give it just a few more seconds to get a few more votes in there. And I'll go ahead and close down that poll. So thanks to everyone who voted on that poll. Want to take this opportunity just to tell you about all the great things that we have in our InfraWorks 360 community. You can get to the main portal with all of the bullet items listed contained in that portal, or access to them. And that is located at autodesk.com/InfraWorks360community. And from there you can get to the forum, where you can get answers and ask questions with other users and with Autodesk folks. We've got our idea station, where you can post your ideas for how to improve the software. InfraTips is a great and very popular site that has a listing, a very, very long and comprehensive listing of quick tips that will help you gain productivity and maybe show you things in the software that you didn't know were there. We've got our gallery, where you can share some projects that you're working on in InfraWorks 360 and show off some of your skills. The Social Hub, which is a feed of Facebook, Twitter, and various blogs that focus in on InfraWorks 360. And then we've got a lot of video content up there as well, including the recordings from previous webcasts. So you definitely want to check out that community page. Normally I read quickly through this disclaimer because it doesn't necessarily apply to our content, but for today's content it is directly applicable because what Nick is going to be talking about is a preview feature. So basically what this disclaimer means is that any discussion or demonstration of a preview feature or a labs feature is no promise that it's going to actually exist in a supported form in the future. So we don't want you to make any purchasing decisions based on anything related to a preview feature. So now that we've got that out of the way, I just want to remind everyone to ask lots of questions. We've got Seth on the line today who's going to be answering your questions through the questions window in your GoToWebinar interface. Unfortunately, because of the size of our group, we can't open the mics or the phone lines because it would just be pandemonium. But please, I encourage you to type in lots of questions in that questions window, and we'll either answer them there in the window or we'll interrupt Nick and maybe have him provide some answers as well. But the more the better, lots of questions, it just makes the presentation that much better. So with that, I am going to hand over the controls to Nick Zeeben, and he's going to take it away. So Nick, the floor is all yours.
Alrighty, let me get the right thing up here. Thanks, Eric. You guys seeing my screen?
Yes, I am. You're good to go.
All right, perfect. So I had the pleasure of doing one of these on road layout and the road tools a few months back, and I'm back again today to talk about component roads, as Eric said. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Nick Zeeben. I'm one of the product managers working on InfraWorks. And my teams primarily deal with transportation and road elements. So my teams have been working quite a bit on this component roads feature. As Eric said, helping answer some questions with us today is Seth Hall. He's one of our QA folks. So he spends lots of his time testing and making sure what we're building in component roads works and functions. So just a quick agenda. So I was just going to spend a little bit of time talking about why components and what this effort is sort of designed to do and help with. And then I'll go through managing and editing the individual components, and then we'll look at using them. And finally, we'll take a look at decorating on top of components. So sort of a really quick agenda. So really the biggest goal for this component roads project or preview and the feature itself is really around a superior user experience. So today in the product, if you are building roads and you need to adjust how the road looks, you are in this secondary edit window that looks like the one on the left, and you are adding tracks and changing things, and you get a little preview, but then you have to go back to the product and apply those styles to the roads. And so there's a lot of flexibility that isn't available there, and we also recognize that we all have sort of typical roadway sections in our projects, but then it's a lot of edits and changes from that typical section to account for changes in that roadway. So the re-envisioned or the reimagined workflow that we have today and we're working on delivering is one of in-canvas or in-model creation and editing of the roadway. So avoiding secondary dialog windows altogether, basically to throw back to maybe a 2000s term from the internet, but WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. And we're really working towards that type of capabilities in component roads. So let's hop over to the product and we will start taking a look. So stop number one, as Eric mentioned, component roads is a preview. And so basically what that means is we know that we haven't yet built enough capabilities to make it prime time and ready for everybody. So we provide previews of those features that we're working on in this little preview section. So you want to make sure, if you want to play with component roads, this road component model needs to be toggled on. So the little red switch tells me that mine is turned on. If that's not on, you won't see it in the product at all. So let's go take a look at the product. So we'll get started by talking about what a component is. So The individual components and assemblies that we provide today are a fixed set. So we have a jersey barrier, a lane, a shoulder, a sidewalk, some sloped medians in different materials, and that list is fixed in terms of what we provide today because we haven't gotten to maybe customization, or well, I'm going to talk about customization a little bit, but we don't allow creation of brand new components, but we do allow a number of edits and changes to these components that give you lots of flexibility that may not be maybe evident right off the bat. So we'll take a look at a lane to start and talk a little bit about what a lane does. And I'm just using some sort of white space in my drawing here to put a lane in. So nothing changes with component roads about the actual placement of the road. It's the same procedure that we're used to with our regular elements. What does change is once one's in the model, I have a second level of selection. So I'll back out again and do that one more time. So if on my first pick I get my road, as long as I'm in geometry mode and I pick once more, I will get the lane. So here you can see I now have a lane. And again, like we were saying, a focus on in-canvas manipulation and editing. So perhaps if my lane width isn't what I want it to be, I want a 5-meter lane instead of a 3-meter lane, I can make that change right here in the asset card. I could also change the depth. So that's the other piece that goes along with these component roads, is they're actually 3-dimensional representations of the individual components that make up the roadway. So the style-based version of roads are really just a flat line, or you can adjust some of the height offsets for that, but we're sort of moving towards a full 3-dimensional representation of the roadway itself. So in this case of this lane, I could adjust the width, the depth, the slope if I wanted. So just to make it really evident, we'll put a minus 10% slope on that roadway, and if I look at it, you can see there is a crossfall or a slope on that roadway. So I can make all of the changes that I would like here, and I'm just so it's super evident and we can see the difference. If, for example, I didn't like the stock lane material that we have applied, which is, let's see, dark gray asphalt, I could go ahead and change that, and I'll show you how to save off a different version of that. So I'm just going to go with a bright green because it's super evident and demos well. So I now have a bright green lane, and we already altered the width and we already altered the slope. So I can now right-click with the road selected, and if I choose this Add to Library option here, this is going to allow me to pick a point along the roadway, and it's going to save off the configuration I have for reuse later. So in this case, I only have one lane or one component, so it's just going to give me something that I can reuse that is this new lane that I just created. So I'll just call this green lane and hit the save button. I could have pressed enter too. So now if we go back to our creation of road components, down here at the bottom you can see I now have a custom and I have green lane. So now I can reuse that green lane with those different sets of settings that I want going forward. So I can customize and create anything I'd like and leverage it there. So what I'm going to do, my creation here, I'm going to create a new little access road, and we'll just sort of look at maybe a proposed road subdivision type option in this area. So I'm going to create a new configuration of roadway that is going to represent what I want for my subdivision. So I'm just going to start off with a 2-lane undivided, and I want to add some more detail. So we'll start to look at the creation workflow a little bit here, but we'll look at it later in a little more detail. So I'm just going to add another component. So on the right-click menu, I'll say Add, and I am going to add a curb So I'll just add a curb on that side, and I will finish that one, and I am going to add a curb on the other side, and I'll finish that one, and we'll add a sidewalk on one side of our road here. So I'll right-click and say, let me add a sidewalk. And I'll use search because I'm feeling kind of lazy. So I will put a sidewalk on the outside there, and I'll finish that one. So now I've got something that looks a little more like what I want to build the subdivision road from that I'm going to start creating. So I will again use that add to library, and I will pick right there, and I will call it, oops, 2-lane with sidewalk. And I'll just use enter this time. And that's now been saved off. Again, I could have started my design and then saved it off after I had created my initial design, but we will now look at laying out some road. So as I said earlier, the road tools are exactly the same as the other design road tools in the product. So right now we only have one button, so it's defaulting to the lowest design speed. In this case it's 45 kilometers an hour because I'm in a metric model, but I'll grab my 2-lane with sidewalk, and we're going to make a connection to the existing roadway somewhere up here, and we will create our roadway along part of the mountain here. Let me just undo that point. Hang on. Let me start that over. There we go. It's a little better. So I'll just put a little road in and maybe just a little loop road. We're just going to build a few houses or something in that area. So I now have my roadway added to the site here. Again, nothing's changed from the roadway edit experience, so if you didn't watch that first informative webcast that I did, you should go back and check it out. But I'll just make a couple quick edits here and get us, I went too far, get us sort of out of cut a little bit and get us the roadway. So now that we have the roadway itself, we can start to examine making some edits and changes to change the appearance of the road and make really design edits. So if, for example, we wanted to, I don't have a full knuckle feature in the product today, but I could simulate a knuckle by adding an additional lane into this roadway. So I'm going to pick the road here, and I'm going to say let's insert a component, and I'm going to pick I'm actually going to pick a shoulder because it won't put striping in that way. And so I'm going to put a shoulder in, and you can see when I'm moving the mouse, we get this little gizmo in the product, and it shows me that I'm getting a component that's going to be that long to start, and then we can start editing it. So in this case, it's defaulted to 50 meters in length, and you can see as I hover, it shows me the different locations or snaps to the different locations I could insert this particular shoulder. So I'm going to insert this one between the lane and the curb. So I'll pick right there. We get a little preview showing me where that's going to be. I'm okay with that, but I actually want it to be a little bit longer. So I'm just going to adjust via the gizmo and make it a little bit longer so that it takes up a little more space. If I wanted maybe an even length, I can just change that to 50 meters and insert that guy there. So I'll say finish insert, and now we get our shoulder added in there. Now in this case, if I'm sort of looking to simulate a knuckle, I probably need more than 1.5 meters of width to get those lot frontages up. So I will go to something like 5 meters perhaps and get myself a knuckle into my roadway. So now we have more lot frontage available, so we can sneak more lots in on the outside of that roadway there. So I could, if I didn't like one of the edits I made, I could still come back in, pick that component, and I could adjust where it starts and ends and make changes to it as well. We'll go look at some other edits. So I don't have a sidewalk on the inside of my roadway at the moment. It's sort of a deliberate oversight on my part. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a component, and I will grab my sidewalk, and I'm going to insert that sidewalk on the inside of the roadway. So I'll grab the top grip here, and you can see we have this align to, and if I hit the drop down it says end of road. So this one I started right at the start of the roadway, and so I'll just say to the end of the road, and now if I zoom out you can see the preview shows me that that sidewalk is going to wrap all the way around my road to the end. So I'll finish that, and now I have sidewalk on both sides of my roadway, and we have a better, more accurate design in our subdivision for what we want to do. You might want to do something like a special pavement treatment, maybe some cobblestone or something on the entranceway here to slow people down as they come into the subdivision. So I could do that a few different ways. So I'll do it first. I'm going to split a component. So I will split this component here. And now I will show you. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can see. So now you can see I have one component that is the length of the subdivision that way, and then if I pick over here, I have another component that is a little bit shorter. So there's still a lane the whole way through, but they're now two individual components. That lets me make changes to just that portion of the roadway. So I can go in and I can say, let's change the surface material, and we said we were going to go with kind of a cobblestone to let people, give them an audio clue that they're on a different type of roadway, and now you can see that different material has been applied to that component. Any of those properties that we pick are also editable there. So if we wanted to flare out the entrance a little bit, maybe give it an extra meter of space, then I can make that 1 meter wider, and the road will transition there as well. So a few edits and changes that we can make there. Now, if, for example, I decided that I had done a design and I got it totally wrong, we've got some other tools available to us to correct that. So if I pick this roadway and right-click, way down here you can see I have Replace Assembly. So what Replace Assembly does is it's going to replace everything that I've got in the roadway with some different variation. So if I say Replace Assembly, we get our component picker, and I could pick, you know, kind of a poor example. I didn't work up a great one for this in advance, so I apologize for that. But if I wanted to switch to a 4-lane divided with a raised Jersey barrier, I can pick that, and I could say I would like that to be replaced along the whole roadway there. And I could have used the align to end. I just picked on screen, and I'll finish the replace. So now you can see, right, all of those little edits that I did, I blew away and I replaced them with a 4-lane divided with a Jersey barrier in this case. So a few options for how you want to, how you can edit and change things. I'm just going to undo that because we made a bunch of meaningful edits or things we wanted in this case. But you can see all of the interaction is focused on the roadway, adding, removing, doing manipulations on the roadway itself. No secondary dialogues, no need to go off screen and do other things. You just edit. What you see is what you get. There are a couple of limitations that I do want to talk about today. So for example, when I did this split over here, I can't, I'll show you here, I'll shrink this down. It won't let me shrink it any smaller. The reason it won't let me shrink it any smaller is that we have an internal limitation right now that a component length has to be 20 meters. I make no promises, but I'm well aware that that's a problem that we'll need to resolve before we swap this from being a preview feature to something else. So rest assured that the team is working on that, and we will have some resolutions for you in that regard. Now, if, for example, we wanted to do perhaps a grass median or some grass strips along the edges of the roadway here, I can do that here as well. So I'm going to find my sloped grass median, and I am going to insert that in the middle. So I will add that one and say finish, and we can add that grass median control. If I wanted to, let's say, for example, add a grass strip at the edge here, I could do the same thing. So I might want to say insert component, and I'll say slope grass median, and I'll put that one in between the sidewalk and the curb if I picked in the right spot. Let me say finish. There we go. So I can add those sloped grass areas as well and manipulate those. And same thing, everything is a selectable, editable component. If I grab one, let's see, I'm trying to think of a good example here to show you some of the other navigation. So let's see, let's grab this guy. So we do have some choice when we're editing components. So I'll zoom way in so we can see them. And here you can see when I'm dragging the shoulder, you can see there's this dot and an arrow. And so what those indicate is places that I could drag this element. So in this case, at this particular location, I can continue along this seam or this joint between the curb and the sidewalk in order to stretch this element out. I don't have another option for where I could send that, but I will look at a lane example and show you what I could do there. So let me say I would like to insert a lane in here, and I could continue to insert that lane. Oh, hang on, let me do that again. I want to insert that lane on the outside, and now if I'm manipulating, it looks like I'm not getting multiple choices there. So here's an example. You can see a little bit more. So you can see as I get here, I can choose which side of a particular element I want that to go on. You can see it's stepping out to that new selection. So I'll leave that one for now. I have also, we showed replace assembly for the whole road. If I wanted to replace just a particular element, so maybe this lane, once I have it selected, I can right-click and say replace, and I could swap the standard lane for something else. So something in my list here, it looks like I'll go over to custom and I'll just grab my green lane so it's evident. So now I have that green lane material, and it's replaced that lane the whole way through my design. So I think that is most of the creation and edit tools. I just want to pause for a second and see how we're doing on questions, Eric, if there's anything in that section before I move on to some more topics.
Hey Nick, this is Seth. There seems to be a lot of questions about custom components and creating our own custom components. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, so as I showed you, within the realm of what's available today, you can create or modify any of those existing components. So you need to start with one of the predefined ones. So it's a lane, a shoulder, a sidewalk, or one of the curbs, and then you can manipulate those values like I showed earlier, right? So again, if I do another example, I'll show curb just because it has sort of more interesting values, but I'll just draw a quick road and zoom in here, and I will select the curb. So I can, oh, actually I lied. We fixed the curb values, but I can't edit them directly. So let me do a shoulder here to show an example. So there we go. So here's a shoulder. Let me get rid of this other road because the intersection looks. There we go. All right. So here I've got a shoulder. My shoulder material is a paved surface. If, for example, I was looking for something that is dirt or a gravel shoulder, I can now swap that out to a gravel shoulder. And then if I want to change its width or its depth properties, I can alter those here as well. So if I need a 2.5 meter shoulder instead of a 1.5 meter shoulder, I can do that. And now I get those. Again, once I've made any of those custom manipulations, then I just simply say add to library and save those, and I can reuse those going forward. Obviously, custom shapes, things like that, are not there today, but they're things that we're well aware of and will have a solution for, but I cannot tell you when. So we're rest assured that we know those are requirements. But right now we've really been focused on building out this edit experience, and the way we derived our initial list of categories and capabilities is really from the existing styles tools that are there. So anything that you could build with styles, you should be able to simulate and mimic here. You can build all of those same kind of track style things. Obviously we didn't even have anything beyond lane and text labels in the style mantra. So here, by adding specific components, you get a little bit more capability, and we're really focused on building out the model itself here. So that allows us to do that. Anything else, Seth, before I move on to some conversion?
No, I got it covered pretty well. If I see any more themes, I'll shout out.
Okay, so one of the things that we have been working on and recently did is obviously a component road is different in its construction than a style road. So for example here, this is a style-based road right now. So if I go to style, you can see here's the style zone, and if I wanted to manipulate that, I could change it. But in order to use components, if I right-click on this, you don't see any of the component options in the right-click except for this one here. So this is convert to component road, and so it's essentially going to go through and get rid of the styles in the road and replace them with components. So I will say convert. It's going to ask me what I would like to convert it to. So I am going to grab, I'll use my custom one that I built earlier, 2-lane with a sidewalk. I'll pick that and right-click and say convert, and it'll go through and replace those elements with the style that I've determined. So this is sort of one of the first releases of this capability. So it doesn't know anything about multiple style zones at the moment. It's one replacement, but we have some enhancements that we're working on there as well. But it does know about lane counts. So whichever, here you can see I have 3 lanes on one, or 2 lanes on one side, and 3 lanes total, 2 lanes on one side, 1 on the other. And if I do that same conversion workflow here, and I pick this, even though it says 2-lane with sidewalk, if I finish that conversion, it will insert components with the appropriate lane count. So here you can see I now pick the road. I can now pick that outermost lane. I can pick the middle 2 lanes. Once it's converted, it's just like any other component road, so I could go ahead and adjust the start or end station of that 3rd lane. So maybe this is a little turning lane that we have there. and can show. So, but that's the conversion workflow as it exists today to help you take existing design roads and turn them into components. So just a step forward there. So the other piece of capability that I want to talk about, I'm going to go back to my other proposed site to talk about this, is we can today on a style-based road do decorations. And I'm just going to swap out this green lane back for a regular lane, just so that it's a little more realistic. So we can add what we call decorations in the roads context to these component roadways. And that workflow is a little different. In the old workflow, you would go through the style dialog that way. So here we use a workflow that's really the same as what we've been leveraging for the road components themselves. So I just right-clicked and said I would like to place a decoration. So I'm going to put some trees in my median here. And see, so we are somewhere tropical, so I'll grab my South Carolina palm tree in this case, and I'm going to pick on the median and place that there. So you can see now I have those decorations along that component. Looks like I'm getting a warning about something. And then when I have it selected, you can see I have some properties for it here in the asset card. So if I wanted to change the spacing, right now it's set at 10 meters, so maybe I want it every 15. That should give me something like 3 there, or 2. So now you can see I've got a few less. And then in this case, if I zoom in, you can see they're not in the middle of the island. So I'm going to go with a seam offset. So I'm going to go, let's see, we'll try, I don't remember how wide that median is, but I'll try a meter and see what happens. Oh, and I went the wrong way. So because I started the road the other way to the, I just need to go -1. Oops, not -11. There we go, -1. So I can adjust those that way and add decorations there. So I'll add some street lamps next, and I will say, oops, not components, sorry. I will place decorations, and I am going to add a street lamp, and I'm going to add it on the outside of my roadway here. And you can see those street lamps, so it looks like I've got the rotation there is the wrong way. Get them picked. So I want those facing 180 degrees from the way they are. And we're going to move them into the sidewalk a little bit. So I will say, I attach them at the outside, so I'm going to move them -0.5, half a meter. So now you can see our street lamps are placed along the roadway there. In the style-based world, if I wanted to stop street lamps for some reason, that would have required me to create a whole new style without them as a decoration. So here in the component world, if I just pick on that item, I can say right-click, and I will split that maybe somewhere, let's see, somewhere like this. And now I have 2 sets of decorations, and I could drag that back. Let me drag it way back. And now I can have a gap in my decorations without needing to have an additional style created with and without street lamps. So manipulating decorations, you can add and remove them that way. They, just like all the regular decorations on the road, if I adjust the geometry right and change where that road attaches, everything stays with the road, so they are connected, and all of those good things that we've come to expect from our decorations capabilities. So let's see. I'm just looking at my list. See what
Hey,
other...
Nick, I got
Yes.
one for you. There seems to be a lot of questions around lane striping.
Okay. Yeah, I have it. That's actually the next thing I have on my list. So we have the stock lane striping or the regular lane striping that appears automatically. So you can see it here. If you want to do similar to what you did with style-based roads, you can do that a couple of ways. So one way is I can make myself a component, which I did earlier, that will look like that will look like the lane striping I want. So if I just say insert a component, and I will scroll down into my list here, and you can see I have one called white stripe. It's actually a shoulder that I just changed the material and the width to be really small. So you would mimic the workflow that you had in the style-based world. I would do similar. I would add a new track that's white, and I would change it. So in this case, I'm going to go from the end of the road to the start of the road. And I will say finish. And now I get a solid white stripe dividing the roadway. Now, here in the States, people tend to like yellow, so I will go grab a yellow center line and make that a yellow center line. So that's one option. It is adding physical width to the roadway surface, so if you need to account for that, then you'll obviously need to do some math as far as adjusting lane widths and doing those things. You can also, depending on the situation, leverage our decorations to stripe with. So in this case, what I did is I just created a polyline in AutoCAD, and I saved that out via the FBX export in AutoCAD, and I now have that available as a decoration. So I'll say I'm going to, out at this edge, insert a decoration. Oops, sorry. Oh, hang on. Let me undo that. I forgot to pick the right decoration. So I'm going to say place decoration. I'm going to place it along this edge. I did it again. Hang on. Third time lucky. I am going to place decoration, and I am going to search for striping. So I just have a line, and I'm going to place that line in. Now, mine isn't probably the ideal scenario for this because it's not going to look very elegant around the outside edge. But where'd that go? Interesting. Seem to have misplaced that one. Let's do this a different way. So I'll place it in line here, and then we can see it. So I will place that down the middle. There we go. Okay. So here's an example. You can, it's kind of hard to see with the highlighting, and my line probably should have been a little bit bigger. I didn't pay too much attention. I think I actually created the line in Imperial, and now I'm in a metric model, so it's pretty small. But you can see the little white line has appeared there in my model. So I'm going to pick that again. I'm going to add a rotation to it, 90 degrees. And in my case, like I said, looks like my line, when I created it, it's kind of hard to see, but it's a little skewed and off-center. So it's going to look a bit funny along my roadway here. But if I finish up, and I will get rid of my yellow striping, you can start to see the decoration style there. So you can do that one. This one, when I originally developed it, I was actually developing it for somebody was looking for parking bays along the side of the road. So here, if I, for example, pick and said I want to place decorations and I want to place them along this outside edge, and I want to, I'm just going to give them a bit of a vertical offset, 0.1. The other, and I want to flip them by 180 degrees, and a little tougher to see because of the white, white on the gray here, but now I'm getting striping. Oh, there's the other ones I added earlier. Let me get rid of those. If I can. There we go. I'll get rid of those ones. So a little harder to see here, but now I get a regular stripe for what would represent parking bays along the edge there. So those are the ways right now that I can deal with striping, which again are sort of similar to the ways I could do them with a style-based road in manipulation. So those are your options today. Obviously, again, that experience is not where we would like it as far as everything else goes. You know, not that it will work this way, but it would obviously be able to be nice to just grab that existing striping, drag it around, have these same kind of controls that I have on the individual components on the striping. That may happen someday in the future, but we are unable to make commitments and promises that way. So I will leave that at that. So anything else in our question repository?
No, I think we got it covered.
Nick, there were a couple that popped up that I think the group might find interesting. One had to do with grading, and is that handled through a component, or do you go to the roadside grading functionality for that to tie it off?
Yeah, no changes as of yet. So if I pick the road here and go to roadside grading, so you'll see the biggest change when I'm dealing with component. Most of the modes that are in the mode picker go away except for grading. Mm-hmm. So same grading options apply to a component road as they do to a design road. No changes there. Good question, though.
The other question was, being that this is a preview feature and you can turn it on and off, I mean, what becomes of component roads if they're open in an installation of the product where it's turned off?
So the road itself still exists. And I might actually need Seth to double check my math, but it exists. If you pick it, you won't be able to edit them because the edit tools aren't turned on and enabled, but it's still there. If you open and close that model, everything will be fine. All of those things are okay. You just won't have the edit tools and the creation tools available in that instance. Did I get that right, Seth?
That is correct.
And we did just have a question come in about drainage, and I'm wondering if you can talk at all about the interaction between any of the drainage and component roads.
I can give it my college try. Matt Anderson and his team have been working on drainage on top of component roads. So the same type of interaction occurs for drainage. So here, if I select my component roadway and I say add pavement drainage, you know, I get to pick my drainage features and capabilities, and I will add that pavement drainage to the roadway. It is looking at the road's properties. So let me see here. So there you can see, you know, it knows where the curb line is and inserts the catch basin, or the catch basin at the curb line, and then we've got our manholes here as well. If we go take a look underground, the pipe network is established for those also. So the drainage is there. It is, you can see here, it knows the curb line is way outside because that's where the curb line is. And if I select an individual inlet, you can see the tributary area for that inlet where it's picking up water from. So all of the drainage pieces work on top of component roads and are functioning that way. I don't know if there was a more specific question than that. If there is, I probably am not the guy to answer it. Matt would be the guy, but we can maybe queue him up with a future webcast around drainage.
No, that was great. Great job tackling that one. A question early on about custom, you created some custom components. Are those only available within that model, or is there a way to make them available in other models so you can kind of recycle them?
Yeah, so they are available within that model directly. They get saved to a custom folder in the model. Trying to remember where this model is. This model is somewhere here, and it is tutorial. There we go. So there's this unver folder, and if you go into that and go into content, styles, component, custom, you can see the things that I created. Mm-hmm. I don't recall, Seth. I think if you just copy and paste those into another model, they would function in that other model. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that is correct. You can, as long as you grab that AC item and the PNG file and paste them in the same spot in the other model, they will show up. Just that component custom folder won't show up unless you have a custom component already, or custom assembly already saved in that model. So you can go ahead and manually create those, or create a custom assembly and just paste them in there.
So yeah, a bit of a manual intervention to start, but once you've got them created, then like we said, you can put them into any model that you wanted to leverage them in. And we will be cleaning up, obviously, the management of those items going forward. But that was, like we said, right now we've been focused on the initial experience of the manipulation and editing, and less so on the content. So.
Another question that came up early on was how component roads interact with bridges. Can you address that at all?
So the bridge itself knows that components are there, and it basically treats it the same as it would a style-based road. I'm just looking if there's anything bridge-worthy in this model. Looks like there's some kind of stream here. So if I create a component and we grab a 4-lane and we cross that roadway, I believe, so we'll have to do a little and let me say add a PVI. We'll pull that guy up so we can actually see the bridge. But there is a bridge that gets created as soon as it crosses water, just like it would with a non-component road. So the bridge does know about it and interacts with it. Sort of the same story, I guess, really as drainage. So if I said 6 meter lane width, the bridge itself knows that it needs to get wider because the roadway itself has expanded, those kinds of things. So it knows about the components and knows enough to interact with them.
All right, fantastic. Well, we're down to our last few minutes, so Nick, if you don't mind, unless you had anything to wrap up, I was going to take back control.
Yeah, no, take control. Thanks everybody for coming out, and as we continue to build more features, we obviously look forward to showing you some more things. So thanks everyone.
Thanks, Nick. Before everyone goes away for the day, I just wanted to remind you that we are not having a webcast for the first Wednesday in December due to AU and the fact that most of our staff will be tied up with that event, as will many of our users. We will be following up on the third Wednesday in December, that's December 16th, with part 2 of Dave Tyner's Animating InfraWorks 360 model components. So we hope to see you all there and all your friends, and we'll break another attendance record with that one if we haven't done that today. So thanks again for your time and attention, and have fun out there with InfraWorks 360. Have a great day.